Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to, thank University of Aberdeen and also the the curators of the museum collection and for inviting me. So I consider this a great opportunity for me, especially in the time of pandemic, where we are apart from each other and so I also think this is a kind of a good opportunity for me to present some um, uh, although some maybe basic descriptions, but about Sri Lankan dance, particularly masks tradition, and also I hope in this discussion um, we might be able to open some avenues to question about or think about or do more research on mask culture and stories, performance, and things like that. So yeah, so I also would like to thank Jennifer Shaw for inviting me for this. She's the first one to contact me, and thank you, Jen. So just before what I want to show, I want to acknowledge some of the discourses that going on around these areas of topics that we discussed today. One is colonialism and museum. So although I'm not going to discuss about these elements, maybe in the question and answer, if someone wants to have a have a more in-depth discussions. But I want to just to acknowledge that there's conversation going on about colonialism and museum, and how the museum, the idea of museums are connected with colonialism, particularly someone from coming from a colonized country. Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka has been colonized by Portuguese, Dutch, and British, European colonialism, and the connection between museum and colonialism. And also, I want to acknowledge the discourse that are going on in the with ownership of museum objects, like who own the museum objects. There's a discussion on that as well. And also, on the other hand, the preservation of cultural heritage. You know the mask traditions and dance culture, are all considered as culture, cultural heritage, and then there's a need for or discourse for cultural heritage preservation, and in that sense, again, the museum, the idea of museum is important, right? So therefore, there are conflicting discourses going on. So I just want to acknowledge that that's there. Um, so so my presentation today is will be more actually on a kind of descriptive one. But if we want to go more in depth, we can go in the discussion section. So I'll be more presenting on the one of the folk theatre tradition called Kolam. Kolam folk theatre traditions. I'll be mostly talking about that tradition, and also contextualize two masks that the University of Aberdeen owns and has in their collection. So I will relate to that in my presentation as well, uh, and looking forward to the Q&A session. So first of all, I just want to briefly tell about myself. Um, I right now I am in Sri Lanka, particularly in particular, I mean, very specifically, if I say I'm in Kandy, Central Province, um, which was the last kingdom before European colonization. So I grew up here and grew up learning dance from my schools and traditional dance teachers. So dance was like part of my upbringing, although I'm not coming from a traditional dance family, but it was like it was very much presence around me, and so I was really drawn to that. And then I initiated, and then I became kind of graduated as ritual practitioner in Kandyan dance tradition, which is more was popular or originated in the Kandyan region, the central part of Sri Lanka. Um, but later I was more exposed to and I was interested in the other traditions as well. Um, in Sri Lanka, so we have different dance and theater traditions, which these masks are also are integral part of. And in the Kandyan tradition, we don't see the masks very much. We see masks in one or two occasions, but in the southern tradition, the Ruhunu tradition, which is mostly towards the western and southern part of Sri Lanka, I will show you a map in a bit. There it's you will see a lot of masks, use of a lot of masks, and also there are other traditions like practiced by Tamil community in especially in northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. So I will not talk about those different traditions today. I will talk about only one tradition practiced by Sinhala people in the southern part of Sri Lanka. So I'm trying to share my slides. I hope you can see my slides now. Yeah, so here, let me, I think it's full screen now. So this is me here practicing Sri Lankan traditional dance, Kandyan dance. Here in the middle again, it's also Kandyan dance form. Here I'm in the age of maybe 13, 14, doing a mask dance, more in southern tradition, in southern Sri Lanka. So as I told you before, so I'll be mostly focusing on this Kolam folk theatre tradition, which is popular in the western and southern part of Sri Lanka. So here you see, I think you see my mouse pointer here, the western part, western province and the southern province. So so the Kolam tradition is mostly popular in these two provinces, regions, generally. So I'm from central region here. Yeah, so as an island, so we can also imagine, the foreign influences, we had in the past throughout the history, including colonialism, but not limited to that. But we have had many interactions with many other communities, countries, and cultures throughout the history. So I just wanted to show some characters used in Kolam theatre tradition, folk theatre tradition. Yeah, so these are some of the characters that I decided to thought interesting to show you. So on the left corner here, so this is a mask. This is called Marakkala Sanya. So this I purposefully selected these characters. So these are some of the representation of different communities. So here this mask, this character in the ritual theater represent a Muslim person in those narratives. And in the here you see it's a representation of African descendant in Sri Lanka. initially brought to Sri Lanka by Portuguese. So we have a community of African descendant. So the Kolam tradition has incorporated that character, that community as a kind of representation in theater tradition as well, in this theater tradition. And up here, it's a character of a village headman. So that means, like, in this theater form, they also portray their village headmen as well. So what I want to basically say through these characters is, like, so in Kolam theater traditions, what they are showing is what the villagers were doing is, in a way, relating their everyday life stories, or their realities, making them into narratives and masks and perform, right? And on the right, you have a mask of a cow. So it's called gong, which means cow, or bull. So it's also it's an animal character. So there are animal characters as well, and there are masks for animals in this Kolam tradition. So when there's a character about an animal, so then they particularly like a bull, so they will wear this mask. And then on the down here, you have a Nagaraksha mask. So in this narratives, there are also non-human characters, like and also not even like living characters, right? So the animal and humans, but also demons and sometimes deities, like spiritual characters, and also demons. So this is a demon, Nagaraksha, which is about the demon of the cobra demon, so which will come later in the presentation. So these are originally practiced as all night long ritual. All night long folk theater practices. Folk theater, plays. I mean, in the modern sense, we can't say it's a play, but yeah, we'll say folk theater, all night long folk theater. And storytelling is a very much part of it, and also we can see how the stories have evolved and changed, and different characters have come up, and some characters faded away. And currently, this tradition is diminishing for various reasons. I mean, we all can imagine, for various reasons, this tradition is not prominently happening in the country, but occasionally, if there's a patron, or maybe if the cultural ministry, or there's a wealthy patron wants to have this, or for other purposes, people organize. But the mask tradition is still there, so mask making is there. There are traditional families. In fact, yesterday I had a discussion with a younger generation member of a Olabodua dance tradition family. That's Olabodua is one lineage of dance mask tradition. Chitrananda Olabodua. So I had a discussion. So like them, they are still making the masks, and they are still performing this tradition, and they are keeping this tradition alive. But at the same time, there's other development. The making mask for tourism, and Sri Lanka, as like, is a famous tourist destination. So the masks are also being made for tourists, and so there are very different masks, because the mask designed for wearing and masks designed for tourist purposes and other purposes are totally different. which you can also realize when you look at the mask in the University of Aberdeen collection. Yeah, so the villagers were doing this originally, leisurely from their leisure time as a mode of entertainment. So now we have so many other entertainments and also other cultural, economic, socio-economic factors have contributed to diminishing of these traditions. So what I want to say is initially I didn't come to this tradition, the Kolam tradition or the Southern dance tradition, but I was mostly focusing on the Kandyan tradition, which is mostly in the central part of Sri Lanka. But I was turned to the Southern tradition for various reasons, because so these are not just masks. These are practices people have been doing and people still doing. So then you have a collection of artifacts, objects, but at the same time you have a tradition, you have a living tradition with that, associate with that, and also you have discussions, you have history, you have knowledge around this or with this objects. So therefore I was interested in looking at this through anthropological lenses, and also historically and historiographically, and also performance studies lens. So how can we analyze this mask and the traditions through these different lenses? So that was my interest to this tradition, and then but I still consider I'm a very a beginner to this tradition. I'm mostly focused on the Kandyan tradition, the central part. So I'm still a beginner. So I welcome all the questions. But maybe I won't be able to answer all the questions. But I'm happy to answer any question that you might have at the end of this presentation. So this mask you have in the University of Aberdeen collection. So it's a leopard mask. So it's marked as in the collection as a leopard mask. However, in Sinhala terms, in local language, in Sinhala terms, this is called Koti Kolam. Koti can translate as tiger. So if you take Koti Kolam in a literal sense, it will be the mask of the tiger, or tiger mask. But there's another, I'm not saying that the term leopard is wrong, because when you think about geographically, Sri Lanka is famous for leopards. So we have leopards. We still have leopards in certain reserved forest areas like Yala, and so therefore. So this is in a way a character that the villagers encountered in their everyday life. So this is a kind of, so we can assume that, so this is an animal that they had to deal with, or they in various ways. So there's a character with that. So Koti, because the term Koti also its literal translation is tiger. In the context, in the village context, and also when you analyze some of the the folklore, the term Koti is also used for leopard. So therefore, so we could say this is a leopard and the mask of the leopard. So as I showed you earlier, so these kind of animal characters was also part of Kolam tradition. So I'm not going to detail into this, the story behind this, the characters, so there's one story, there's a salesman comes with the bull, and then the leopard or the tiger attacks them and try to eat the the bull, and so there's so this is the story that happens in the ritual theater. So for that, the dancers or the performers had to wear this mask. So they were mostly the villagers. However, so they also there are also particular group of the master practitioners who have been doing this. So the next the mask that I want to bring your attention, this is also in the museum collection, University of Aberdeen collection. So in the museum record, it says Nagaraksha mask, the mask of the cobra demon. So I want to bring your attention to a very interesting comparison here. So the museum, the mask in records, it says Nagaraksha mask. So this is the Nagaraksha mask, or the cobra demon, that we see with the ritual practitioners in Sri Lanka. So these images I got from the website that our department has put together through a grant from the U.S. Embassy Cultural Ambassadors Fund. So our department is involving preserving these traditions through audiovisual media. So so therefore we have collected these images of the masks. So these are Nagaraksha masks in two different the family traditions. So this is another thing. So although there's this mask, so how to depict their mask, how to carve the mask, how to color the mask are different from one tradition, one family to other family. So although it's maybe like you could say one tradition of mask, but within that tradition there are lineages, there are different family lineages. So they have also they have like regional differences even within southern tradition. So that's why the same cobra demon is depicted slightly differently. So this is Nagaraksha, cobra demon. And so if we compare these three masks, it looks similar. So you see cobras here, and you see cobras in the other masks too, and the teeth and the eyes look similar. So that's why somehow the museum collection have identified this as as a mask of the Nagaraksha, the cobra mask. However, I will show you that actually this is not a cobra mask, the cobra demon, but it's a different demon. Let me go to my next slide. So this mask is called dalagara. Gara is the name of the the character. Dala is the tusks. The dala means tusks. So this mask is called dalagara, dalagara mask. So if we translate it, it's the gara with tusks. So these are the two tusks. The white things are the two tusks that this character has. So this is dalagara mask from one tradition, but you can see but it also has cobras on the top of the head. This is also a dalagara mask, picture taken in a performance, in a ritual. So while doing the performance, this was taken, and so I just wanted to show you. So this is how it looks like when it is fully dressed and in the ritual context, and so this is dalagara again. So I'm bringing in a kind of analysis here. So I'm using the same mask, but without some parts. I'm comparing with the existing mask in the University of Aberdeen collection. So when we compare this, you can see these similar characters. So therefore, so this is actually not a Nagaraksha mask. This is not a the cobra demon. This is, in fact, is the dalagara mask. So the gara with the tusk. So what had happened was, so these tusks somehow, in the collection, when it was transferred from one place to other place, these are kind of fragile component of the mask, and also they were attached to the mask, so they were misplaced. So actually, so when we were having this discussion, initial discussion with Jen, so she showed me then, and so I said okay, so that means that there were there are little holes here, so that in order to hold the tusk, originally the mask makers make these holes, and then they put the tusk inside them. And also here is this side, kind of symbolizing the ear. So that part also missing here. So if we put all this together, then so we can say this is not the cobra mask. This is not a Nagaraksha mask. In fact, this is a dalagara mask. So gara with tusk. So which is a totally different character. So why this character differentiation is important? So I just wanted to show you why the Gara character is important. So the Gara, which is this mask, this is Dalagara. So the Gara character is very significant, or plays symbolically plays a significant role in the ritual tradition, Sri Lankan tradition, and also in folk tradition. Because the Gara has a particular role in the Sinhala society, because it symbolizes the cleanliness. So Gara is the one who consumes all the evil. So this is when the Gara comes onto the stage and perform. The Gara sometimes have dialogues with the drummer, but basically the idea is that character, this mask. With the character absorbs or consumes the evil or the pollution, and make the space clean. So therefore this so I mean, somebody could say like this is a scary mask, this is a devil demon mask, but in fact what it does is it's kind of absorb the evil and make the space a better place, make the space clean. So therefore, this character in the ritual tradition, in the folk theater as well, comes at the end of the ritual, because then people say, okay, so we have the pollution, the evil in the space. So this character comes and the drums, and to the drums, the dance, and then it consumes the evil and the pollution and the space, and the belief is everything will be better after that. So therefore, I just want to say that this is the Dalagara mask, the Gara with tusks. Yeah, so those are the things basically that I wanted to show through my slides. So I hope that I gave some kind of description, like a basic description, but in a way contextualizing Sri Lankan mask dance tradition, especially the Kolam tradition. There are other mask dance tradition, the Sinhala mask dance tradition, the Kolam tradition, and try to bring a connection to the museum objects that the University of Aberdeen collection have. So that's the end of the formal presentation. So I'm really looking forward to any questions and comment that the audience might have to ask or have comment. Thank you.